Hello everyone, my name is Asyrafchazz and welcome back to yet another One Piece card game video. Today I'm gonna be talking about the specific cards from the two starter decks that we've seen, being the Straw Hat Crew starter deck as well as the Kaido starter deck, the Animal Kingdom Pirate starter deck. So there are some cards that are better than others in this deck, so I want to talk about the biggest winners and the biggest losers, the best and the worst cards of each of the starter deck. And if you're looking to pick up these starter decks, which ones will be a useful addition to your future deck list depending on your playstyle, as well as some of the cards that you want to avoid unless it's a specific situation. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing if you can, because every time you subscribe to this channel, you pay F for respects for going merry. The best ship ever. Now without further ado, let's talk about the cards that I think are the best and the worst of the starter decks. So let's start with the best cards from the Straw Hat Crew starter deck. Now, number one, upon playing this deck, I think you cannot undispute the power of Gomu Gomu no Jet Pistol, a 4-cost event card with an ability that lets you KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 6000 power or less. This card, if it's from your life and you activate it, it will definitely be a really good card to have, because you can just destroy your opponent characters with 6000 power or less, and it only costs 4. So even if you're playing it from your hand, it's also very good. And I think the starter deck only gives you 2, I believe, so definitely pick up another set so you can get a full playset, because this card is just really good. I think it's one of the biggest winners from the Straw Hat Crew starter deck for sure. The second card that I want to talk about and really give praise to is none other than Nami herself. Nami is a 1-cost, 1000 power with the ability to give a Rested Dawn to one of your characters or your leader card. So it shares the same ability as your Luffy leader card as well. And if you have Nami on the field and you have your Luffy leader always on the field, and you can really make use of the Rested Dawns by just attaching it to any of your characters or your leader. So every single play that you make, let's say you play a 3-cost Jinbei or 3-cost Zoro, and your Dawn isn't wasted, you can still use the Rested Dawn to power up some of your other characters. And having if you have 1 Nami on the field, if you have 2 Namis on the field, it just makes for a really powerful kind of synergy with your captain as well. And Nami also has 8000 for counter, so if she's in your hand and you don't really need multiple Namis on the field, maybe 2, if you have another, your 3rd or 4th copy in your hand, you can always use it as a counter. So definitely a very strong card. I've always been impressed by how strong Nami is, and after playing it a couple of times, you just really understand the power that she has, because a lot of these Straw Hat Crew starter decks, they need multiple Dawns for their abilities to work, especially the top end Rush Luffy, which requires you to have 2 Dawn attached to him to give him the ability to not be blocked, and having Luffy leader and Nami on the field to kind of just you make use of your Rested Dawns to give it to the Rush Luffy. It's really good. I think Nami is definitely a mainstay. Even in the future, I think Nami will be a very useful card to have. She's a good support character for sure. Another big winner from the Straw Hat Crew starter deck is none other than the 2 Rush cards that we have, but the first one is Rush Sanji. 2 cost 4000, and if Dawn 2, that means having 2 Dawn attached to him, he gains Rush. I mean, it works very well with Nami and your leader card. You can make use of Rested Dawn, giving it to Sanji and giving him Rush. Early game, late game, if you have multiple Sanjis in your hand, you can always pressure your opponent into defending against Sanji, because he just has Rush and he can attack out of nowhere. I've always been impressed with playing Sanji on the turn that I want to set up for lethal, then Sanji comes in really handy right there. Also, another great Rush card is the Rush Luffy. 5 cost, 6000 power, very good stat line, and he has inbuilt Rush, so you don't even need to give Dawn to him. But if you do, then your opponent cannot block this character when he's attacking. So I had a game when I was playing, and the opponent had a couple of blockers on the field, but he wasn't using it to defend against all of my other attacks. He was actually just countering stuff from the hand, and I managed to bring him to 0 life. He still had 2 blockers, but he had no cards in hand for counters. I dropped the Rush Luffy, attached 2 Dawn to him, and just swing in for the kill. He's a great finisher in situations that your opponent has multiple blockers and you want to get in that last attack. So definitely a great card to have as your top end, and it's a very strong card, and Dawn 2 isn't that bad, especially when you're pairing it with your Nami card as well as your Luffy leader card. Now let's talk about some of the underwhelming cards from the Straw Hat Crew starter deck. And number one, definitely, and I'm sorry I have to say this is kind of borderline blasphemy, but it is Usopp. Now Usopp is a 2 cost power 2000 and he has Dawn 2. When attacking, your opponent cannot activate blocker on a character with power 5000 or greater, and he has triggered ability is play this card. Now I've been playing with Usopp and he is just not the card you want to see at most times. Like his ability Dawn 2 and your opponent cannot activate blocker with character with power 5000 or greater, it's very niche, and the only target so far that we have based on the 2 starter decks is Queen from the Kaido starter deck. And even if you put 2 Dawn to Usopp, he only has 4000 power, which is not strong enough to attack over your opponent's leader card. You do want to get him to at least 5000 for the attack to be successful. He can do a good job at attacking into some other character cards that are rested on your opponent's side of the field, and he has a trigger ability that you can play this card for free, but most of the times he's just a good counter card to have in your hand. Other than that, he's actually really quite underwhelming, and I don't think Usopp is a very good card in this deck. I wish he had a better effect. Maybe if he was like power 3000, it would make sense for him to get Dawn 2, because then he'll be at 5k power. Like maybe when more cards have been released and there's more blockers with 5000 power or greater, then Usopp might be a little bit better, but as of right now, he is the most underwhelming card in this deck. But there is one more card that I want to talk about, so let's get into that one. So while cards like Karoo and Vivi, they are like baseline attackers, they're just vanilla cards, but they are good cards in your hand to use as counters. But unfortunately, the one of the underwhelming cards of the Straw Hat Crew starter deck is without a doubt Thousand Sunny, the stage card of the Straw Hat Crew starter deck. Yes, you can rest it to give 1000 power for the duration of the turn to a character or leader with the Straw Hat Crew trait, but that's about it. I mean, comparing Thousand Sunny to the Kaido starter decks on Nagashima, there is a vastly strong power difference, and unfortunately I wish that this card gave like 2000 power. Maybe it can be like 3 cost, give 2000 power instead of just 1000. It does help in some regard when you're attacking into your opponents. You want to get around the opponent's blockers, your opponent's counters, so the additional 1000 power does come in handy sometimes, but as a card on its own, it's just okay. It's not great, it's not the worst. I think it's not as bad as Usopp, but it is very underwhelming. So hopefully we get a stronger Thousand Sunny effect for another card in the future, maybe even a Going Merry that has, I don't know, additional 3000 power. I think that will make the card even better, but of course it's a starter deck card, so it cannot be all like crazy overpowered. But I do find this card to be underwhelming at some times. I want to briefly talk about the last card, Diable Jambe, which is a 1 cost event card that lets you choose up to one of your characters with the Straw Hat Crew trait, and for the duration of this turn, your opponent cannot activate blocker during the leader or character's attack. The trigger is KO up to one of your opponent's cost 3 or less characters with blocker. Now this card, I wouldn't say it's super underwhelming. I think it's an okay card. I just want to pay attention to the fact that it does have a specific use. So if you're attacking into like a specific character card that you really want to get rid of, let's say like your opponent has a queen that is rested on the side of the field and you want to get rid of that blocker because it's gonna be a problem for you in the future, you use this card to make sure that one of your cards is unblockable, and that's about it. So it works in your opponent has a lot of blockers on his side of the field, and if the trigger effect happens and you can KO up to one of your opponent's 3 or less character cards with blocker, it works as well. If you're fighting a mirror match for the Straw Hat Crew, you can get rid of Chopper. If you're fighting the Kaido starter deck, you can get rid of Black Maria. But it's just an okay card. If I was looking to upgrade some of the cards of this deck, Diable Jambe might be one that I will cut maybe a 2 off, because its effect is quite useful, but like I said, it's like just okay. So now let's talk about the biggest winners and losers of the Kaido starter deck. And Kaido has a lot of strong, really powerful cards that I think really take this deck to the next level. I do personally think that the Kaido starter deck is a little bit better than the Straw Hat Luffy starter deck, but it does fall into that, like, you really need to manage your resources properly. You need to ramp as fast as you can, but if in the hands of a really good player, Kaido can definitely win some matches for sure. But let's talk about the best card in the Kaido starter deck. This is by far the best. I don't think there is a comparison with this, but the best card is 100% Onigashima, which is the stage card for the Kaido starter deck. It's a 3 cost and you can rest it to add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck to your cost area in rest mode. You can activate this during your main once per turn. And yeah, Onigashima is the perfect card for a purple control deck because you do want to ramp early on, and Onigashima gets you 1 extra Dawn every single turn. It is, when I first saw it was being spoiled, I was like, yep, this is the best card of the deck for sure. I think, like, if you're gonna count about like power levels, sure, like, you know, you have King, you have the Kaido character card, but utility wise, Onigashima is definitely one of the strongest cards in the deck. And it only works if your leader has the Animal Kingdom Pirates trait. So if in the future, if we get a different purple Kaido leader with a different effect, then you can still use Onigashima in that specific deck and have it still be very useful. This is the card that you want to mulligan for. Like, if you draw your first hand of 5 and you don't see Onigashima, ship it all back and make sure you find it, because having an Onigashima in your opening hand that you can drop on turn 2 is definitely better than a lot of the other cards in the Kaido starter deck for sure. The next card I want to draw your attention to is actually King. King is a 6 cost 7000 power, and on play, Dawn -1. Choose one of your opponent's character cards with cost 4 or lower and KO that card. Now King, the reason why I think it's very good is because of its stat line of 7000 power. I have played King, removed a very important card from my opponent's side of the field, be it like either a Zoro, a Jinbei, even one of the blockers at sometimes, even like getting rid of Nami's, it would be quite good because it stops your opponent from using the utility in that case. And just being a 7000 power beater makes your opponent have to actively counter it or block it to prevent the attacks from going through. It's just a really big beat stick at a 6 cost, and you can definitely play it down early because like 6 is not that bad compared to, like, you know, 9, which is the other character card for Kaido. And I think King is a very strong card, definitely one of the strongest in this deck, but you do have to get to the high cost of 6. But a well-timed King on a board that your opponent is struggling to set up, it's very, very good, and you can definitely set your opponent back a little bit with King. Yeah, I want to give a special shout out to the Kaido character card as well. 9 cost is a lot, but it has 10,000 power. This is without a doubt a finisher card. I mean, on play Dawn -5, you can KO up to opponents cost 7 or lower characters, then this character gains rush. This card has won me some games where my opponent has been swarming the board and he has been attacking into my life. I try to like counter stuff, I take some of my life, and he has like, let's say he has 2 rested really strong, like a Frankie or and a Jinbei for example. So you play this Kaido, you Dawn -5, just return 5 cards back into the Dawn deck, and then you pop the, let's say you pop the Frankie, get it off the field, and then this card has rush, you attack into the other card, and you really set your opponent back with their characters, because this card is really good at removing threats from the board. And at 10,000 stat line, he can freely attack into your opponent's leader without any worry, unless your opponent has like a Blast Breath, a strong, like, you know, guard point to really counter the attack and try to, you know, get above that 10k stat line. Because if you're attacking into your opponent's leader, he only has 5k, he has to get his leader up to 11,000 for the attack to be unsuccessful, which is a lot of resources. So definitely a really strong finisher, this Kaido. I've been really happy with it every time I see it. Of course, it is only used like in a really late game, and if you're already winning and you play this, you know, you're in a good time. If you're behind and you play this, you might need to catch up a little bit because you have to return a 5 Dawn back into the deck. But if you have Onigashima on the field, if you have another source of ramp, then it will be really good to have, and you can just, you know, replenish your Dawn and go in for the kill after that. Another good card for the Kaido starter deck is just Who's Who. Who's Who is a 3 cost 3000 with a triggered ability that you can play this card from your life. On play, Dawn -1, KO up to one of your opponent's cost 3 or lower characters. This card is great. You know, if your opponent attacks into it and it get revealed, you draw it, you put it onto the field, it's just like you're in for a good time. And I feel like even if you play it out normally, this card is a great removal. At the cost of only 1 Don, you can get rid of your opponent's early threats, you can get rid of your opponent's Sanji, your Jinbei, or even like opposing like Kaido players like Black Maria, and this card is great. I think it's decent. And of course, like there are a lot of good cards in the Kaido deck. I think like Queen is good, I think like Ulti is good if you have page 1 in your hand. But let's just put the last card that I really like, which is Blast Breath. Blast Breath is, to me, one of the strongest counters in the game as of right now, besides the blue one that we've seen. Blast Breath is 1 cost counter, Dawn -1, and for this battle, your leader or character gains plus 4,000 power. Plus 4,000 is a lot of power to buff up, and you always want to represent that you have Blast Breath in your hand so that you can make your opponent think that, you know, okay, he has Blast Breath, he has multiple counters, I need to plan around this attack. And you can kind of mind game your opponent into playing like suboptimal plays if they are like playing around in a hypothetical Blast Breath. Even if you don't have it in your hand, make sure like you make it seem like you do. Blast Breath is really good. I think I really like it so far from the testing that I've been doing. And if you're picking out the Kaido starter deck, definitely make use of Blast Breath in your games for sure. Don't like depend solely on counters. So like this card is a very important card because 4,000 is just a big boost of power to defend against your opponent's attacks. While the Kaido starter deck, I think most of the cards are great. I don't think I really have a big problem with them. I guess All-Star Disaster would be the most underwhelming card in the deck. If it's triggered from your life area and you get to free draw 1 and ramp 1 Dawn, then it's great. But on your turn, if you're playing like 4 and just to draw 1 and ramp 1, I mean Onagashima already does that, and you have other cards that get you a lot of card draw, like, you know, something like a Sasaki as well as a Queen, then this card is, you know, drops down on its usefulness. If it was 3 costs, maybe I would value this card a little bit higher, but at 4 costs, I think it's just okay. I think it's I mean, for this to be the most like kind of card in the deck, shows you the power of the Kaido starter deck, and everything else is like really strong. So definitely I've been really impressed with the Kaido starter deck. Even if I'm not a control type player, I cannot ignore the power of Kaido, and I'm glad that his starter deck is strong and it's really fun to play as well. So there you have it, just some general thoughts about the specific cards of the 2 starter decks that we've seen. Let me know if you agree with some of my opinions, because, you know, this is a very subjective thought video, but some of the cards from my testing have been really good, some better than others. But let me know in the comments below what you think I missed out on. Should I be rating like All-Star Disaster higher? Should I be overvaluing Usopp maybe? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts, because this is a great point of discussion for these cards. I'm making this video to just kind of have everyone, if you're playing the super pre-release and you're practicing for it, these are some of the cards that you have to pay attention to. Make sure you test your matchups between the Straw Hat crew, and like even like in the mirror match, the super pre-release is your chance to really enjoy the game and try to get the promos while you're there. So that's it for me for today. Let me know what you think about the video. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.